Our user should be able to quickly add a new note. So right here in the notes page, above all notes, let's add a link to create a new note that will take the user to a form. We'll be using a few more buttons in other pages as well, so let's create a button component and reuse it. If you go to resources, views, components, we actually already have a button component, which is primary button and a secondary button. But this uses button type equals submit. What we need is actually a link button. That is a link that looks like a button. We can reuse this styles though, so let me copy all of this, create a new component and call it link button.blade.php. And paste it here. Replace this button with A instead. Yeah, A. And then the href will be merged. We have to remove type equals submit and just keep the class. So all of these styles will be applied. Now open the index blade view and add this component at the top before displaying the notes. You can do so using the X link button component that we just created, and the text could be something like new note. Alright. And now for the URL, that would be the create route. So it's route notes.create. We're of course yet to add the functionality, but let's just see what this gives us. Refresh. Great, we have the new note button here. Let's click on it, and yes, it does take us to the correct URL. Now open the node controller, and here in the create method, simply return the view notes.create. We need to create this view file, so go to resources, views, notes, and new file, create.blade.php. We need the same layout as index, so go to index.blade.php, copy everything, and paste it here. Let's just remove all of this. We only need this div with a white background, so I will retain that, but remove everything else. Alright, save this and let's refresh the browser. Yes, we have the layout as needed. Now it's time to add the form to create a new node. Add the form element, leave the action blank for now, and the method will be post. Also, let me add a class here to restrict the width of the form, so I'll just say max width 3XL for now. Now, we need an input field for the node title and a text area field for the actual node here. We must already have an input component that's being used for the login and register forms. Let's take a look at that. If you go to components, you can see that there is text input.blade.php. This is the one that's used in all the login pages. We can simply reuse this. So add X text input and give it a name, of course. Name equals title. Alright, let's save this, look at the browser and see what we've got. Alright, we need to make this full width. So let's do that by adding a class wfull and give it a placeholder node title. Now following the input component, let's similarly create a text area component. So go to components and create a new file, text area.blade.php. You can copy the content from text input component, paste it here and replace input with text area, and here we'll have to close text area, and we can use this in our view file now, x text area, and this name would be text because that's what we called it, placeholder where we type your note, and then we can even add rows. Number of rows in the text area could be 8 or something. Only thing is text areas are slightly different from inputs. Here we don't have a value attribute. We need to specify the value like so, and then here in the component we need to accept this value, set it to blank by default, and right here use that value. Alright, back to the form. We need a button now. For this again, we have the primary button, so we can simply add it here, X primary button, and let the button text be saved note. And now to the text area and button, just add some margin top, so we can do that here, class equals empty6 or something. Same goes for the button as well. Alright, now comes the form's action attribute. When you submit this form, we need to send the data to the stored route. So specify that using the route helper method, and the route is notes.store. Alright, open the browser, refresh. Okay, there is a syntax error. Let's check. Right here in the text area component. Alright, I did forget this fat arrow. Let's go back and refresh. Looks like we didn't add the class properly. So go back to the blade file, and yeah, we need to add a wfull here. Let's see. Refresh. Alright, this is good, but somehow I think the max width 3XL isn't working for the form. Let me try max width 2XL. Refresh, and yes, this is working, but I think I'll limit the wrapper div also to 2XL, or I will remove this and add that right here instead of 7XL. No, I'll add here, make it max width 2XL. Okay, refresh. Great, now the form looks perfect. Let's just type something here and try submitting the form. First note, some text here. Save note. And yes, we get a 419 page expired error. What does this mean? This actually happens to prevent cross-site request forgery attacks. Let's look at the docs. Go to laravel.com, documentation, and you can search for CSRF. And you can read more about the vulnerability here. Basically, all forms that use post, put, patch, or delete requests are vulnerable to such attacks. So Laravel automatically generates a CSRF token for each session to make sure that the authenticated user is the one making the request and not someone on the outside. So every form on Laravel with such requests has to include a CSRF token to validate the request. And this can simply be done by adding a CSRF blade directive within the form. Note that any form with the method post, put, patch, delete has to have the CSRF blade directive, otherwise you get the 419 page expired error. Now go back and try refreshing the browser. You can inspect element, and you can inspect the form. Let me close this. You can inspect the form and see that this new hidden input has been added. This is the CSRF token I'm talking about. Okay, close this. Now create another note, some text here, and try submitting the form this time. And yes, now we don't get any error. Let's see how to save this note next.